Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast. GSMC Pets Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and it is day 2 of sheltering in place for our family. The mandatory shelter in place or stay where you are or, don't leave unless it's absolutely necessary, flatten the curve order came for the entire state of California starting yesterday. So this is day 2, and so far we're surviving. But hey, we're, learning new ways of being together all the time. Thankfully, we have pets who help to entertain us and break the tension and do all those wonderful things that they do. Today, I would like to talk about pets on social media, which you probably gathered from the name of this episode, right? Pets on social media. So first I'll look at pets on social media any day, but when you are stuck at home and trying to find ways to entertain yourself when you're not, working and doing all those other things, then pets on social media, or podcasts about pets, as you are listening right now, are a great way to pass the time. I've said before on this podcast that I didn't grow up with pets really. I never had pets as an adult until I got married. And now I'm just somewhat obsessed. I mean, if there's an article about a cute dog, I'll click on it. If there's an article about an adopted cat, I will click on it. Seriously, I've gone a little bit pet crazy. So I am a fan of the pets on social media, and I wanted to talk about a few of those pets today. The first actually is, it's a Facebook page, and it is facebook.com/Capone the Wonder Dog. Capone is a black lab, and I know about Capone because I actually did a book review interview with Capone's owner, Abigail Drake, who wrote a book called Love, Chocolate, and a Dog Named Al Capone. The subtitle is Pride, Prejudice, and Puppies. It is a book told from the dog's perspective. It's a romance. It's women's fiction, but it is told from the dog's perspective, and that dog is Capone. Now, I interviewed Abigail about this book, and so I want to include a clip from that interview of Abigail talking about how this book came about.
This book happened by accident, as most of my books do. I have a black lab, and his name is Capone. That's his actual name. And he makes a lot of very bad choices, poor decisions. I think he's like a typical lab in many ways, but sort of worse. Like every lab you've ever met times 2. He's sitting here right now acting like an angel, but this is not the normal situation. But, So when I first got him, it was the first pet we'd ever had as a family, and he's 5 years old now. But when we first got him, I have nieces who live very far away. They live in Istanbul, Turkey. My husband's from Istanbul. And when we got the puppy, they were so excited, but they wanted to see pictures of the puppy every single day. And so I thought, well, that will be annoying on Facebook. So I created a Facebook page for my dog called Capone the Wonder Dog, and started posting pictures of Capone along with like a little story of what completely idiotic thing he had done the day before. And he gave me tons of material. I mean, there has not been a day in 5 years that I haven't had something to write about. So I started doing this, and I didn't I wasn't really thinking about it, that other people would be able to see it because it's a page, it's public. And it never even occurred to me. I don't know, I wasn't even thinking about it. And pretty soon I noticed other people were commenting and reading, and then there were people I know and people who live in my town who I didn't know, and then like people in Iceland, people in Holland. Like it became very strange. There's a woman in Brazil who comments every day in Portuguese, and she's lovely, and I do Google Translate so I can respond to her. But it started becoming a very big thing, and now I have about 10,000 views a week.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and the people on it kept saying, can you please put a dog in a book? And so I decided, at first I thought, oh, I'll write a children's book. And then I said, yeah, I write women's fiction. That's what I know how to do. So I'm going to figure out how to do this. So it's a love story, but it's told from the perspective of the puppy. So the entire book is narrated by the dog, which is the voice that's used in my Facebook page. And a lot of the things that happen in this book, my dog actually truly did. So I'm not going to say it's autobiographical because I am not. The main character owns a bookstore and she falls in love with a man who owns a coffee shop. So it's not autobiographical in that sense, but in the sense that my dog did eat things that got stuck in his intestinal tract more times than I could count, then yeah, that's kind of, it's truth.
So that was author Abigail Drake talking about the inspiration for Love, Chocolate, and a Dog Named Al Capone. I loved that book. I laughed so hard. Every chapter starts with a list of, like the Capone will list the things that he ate that day that he should not have, or the things he chewed up that day that he should have not have. It's very sweet. My poor husband thought I was crazy because I am one of those people who will just laugh out loud, uproariously at a book that I'm reading. It's one thing when you're at home, your husband may think you're crazy, but it's another thing when you're on the train going to work or somewhere in public. I have to try to contain myself. On a plane, that's always fun. But I laughed so much at this book. Capone just made me giggle. The way Abigail captures his little puppy voice is amazing. Let me read you one of his recent posts. She posts every day on Facebook. After I spoke with her with the podcast, that I immediately went and looked up Capone the Wonder Dog, and I read his posts every day because he's just, again, she captures his voice so well. So this is from March 14th, and this is from Capone. Madame, that is Abigail. Madame has decided I have no concept of social distancing, mostly because I have no respect for personal space. This was proven this week over and over again. The middle son brought his friend Louis home to visit for a few days. Louis was to return to his home for spring break, so we thought it would be nice to have him here for a few days instead. Poor Louis. He didn't know what he was getting into. It turns out I like licking Louis. A lot. Last night, while Madame and Monsieur were playing a board game with the middle son and Louis shifted in his chair a little uncomfortably. Madame looked down and saw I was on his feet. "Aw," she said, "he loves you." "Actually," said Louis, "he's licking my feet." "He is?" asked Madame, sticking her head under the table. I paused in mid-lick, tongue hanging out of my mouth. "Oh, he is." "He's been licking Louis constantly," said the middle son, "especially his feet." Louis isn't the only object of my affection, though. I'm also obsessed with another of the middle son's friends, Garrett. Sadly, Garrett is not quite as obsessed with me. Last night, Madame found out the reason. It's because the first time Garrett met him, Capone greeted him by headbutting him in the crotch. "Oh," said Madame. "And the second time." "Really?" "And the third time." "Uh-oh, no wonder Garrett doesn't like Capone." The middle son shook his head. He likes Capone, but he's justifiably cautious around him. "I get that. Really, I do. Crotch crashing is not a polite thing for anyone to endure. Garrett stopped by last night, and I think he was a little relieved when I didn't annoy him, or crotch crash him, or drool on his new khakis. What can I say? I had other things to do. I was licking Louis's feet. Hey, it's better than crotch crashing, right? In other news, I now have a nice soft bed. Thank you, Townsend and Madame L'Artiste. It's also become my new timeout spot, and Madame sent me there last night for the first time. What was my crime? Excessive Lewis licking. Can I plead the fifth? That is just one day in the life of Capone the Wonder Dog. He's a lab, and they have so very much energy. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the podcast. When we come back, a little more about Capone, and then we'll move on to Benny Boo, who is also adorable. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Pets Podcast. I am speaking today about pets on social media. Specifically, before the break, I was talking about Capone the Wonder Dog, who makes me smile pretty much every day, and his book made me laugh a lot. So if you are a fan of cute black lab pictures and hilarious black lab stories told from the point of view of the black lab, then you should definitely check out Capone the Wonder Dog on Facebook. He loves, like I said, he gets the zoomies at inappropriate times, like during the oldest son's engagement party. He loves people that come to the door, and he has his favorites. He loves the UPS guy, or maybe gal, I apologize, I don't remember which it is, but he loves delivery people in general, and makes me laugh every day. Our next pet on social media is Benny, and Benny actually is the dog of a colleague of mine here at the GSMC Podcast Network. Another of our hosts, Tate, was speaking with Jeff one day when I came into Tate's office, and they happened to be talking about Jeff's dog, Benny, who also has a presence on social media, and he is so popular that people send him cards from all over the world, and many people send him money. Why? Because one of Benny's favorite things to do is to go to McDonald's and get scrambly eggs. And so people send him scrambly egg money so that he can continue going to the drive-thru at McDonald's and getting his little breakfast treat. Benny is also on Facebook. Benny Boo is also on Facebook at Benny Boo the Maltese, if you want to check out his page. When I was speaking to Jeff about this adorable little puppy, I call all dogs puppies. It doesn't matter if they're 20 years old, they're still puppies. When I was speaking with Jeff said that he is a rescue and that he's very, very smart. One of the things that he loves to bark at dogs on TV shows or commercials, and he actually knows the music to certain commercials that have dogs in them. And so even if he's in another room, if he hears the music of a commercial he knows there's a dog in, he will run into the living room or wherever the TV is, I don't know. He will run into the room with the TV just so he can bark at the dogs on the TV. He has friends in commercials and he must bark at them, clearly. Benny is a wearer of sweaters. He can rock some sweaters. He has many, many outfits that he appears in. He likes to use the word fabulous because, obviously he is Benny Boo. He abbreviates, instead of LOL, it's BOL, barking out loud. Just I mean, people who create social media pages for their pets, I find fascinating and creative. I mean, my dogs and my bearded dragons are on social media at times. I post pictures of them, but I don't find myself, I don't know, creative enough to post as them, generally speaking. Or I might have like one inspiration, I don't even know, let's say a year, that might be entertaining to post as one of my animals, but then then the muse just goes away, and so there would be no point in creating a page for my animals because it would be sadly neglected because I would not post on it simply because I'd be like, I can't, I'm too much of a perfectionist. I can't possibly think of anything entertaining today. So I like to go to other people's pages. Benny is so cute. I mean, so you've got Capone, who is a big black lab, and Benny, who is a tiny white Maltese. Very different, and it seems like they're very different in temperament. Benny seems pretty chill. I don't know for sure, but seems a lot more chill than Capone at any rate. But he's adorable, and whenever anybody sends him a card, then there's a picture of Benny Boo with the card, oftentimes with some scrambly egg money, and Benny always thanks whoever sent him the card. Here's one from March 10th. OMD. Oh, that's the other thing. It's not OMG. It's OMD. Oh, my dog. I got some scrambly egg money from my very dear friend Rose. I'm a lucky boo. XOXO heart emoji. I just, I don't know. First of all, the phrase scrambly egg makes me happy. It doesn't take much to make me happy. Have you noticed this? So, again, that's at Benny Boo, the Maltese, if you're looking for more pets to follow on social media. That is Facebook. So, facebook.com/Benny Boo, the Maltese, if you like adorable little white Maltese who like scrambly eggs and who can really rock a sweater, then you may want to follow Benny Boo on Facebook. Oh my goodness, as I'm recording this, I just heard my boy dog growling. Now, he's growling at something outside, of course he is, but I like to pretend that he's growling because I'm talking about other dogs that are not him, and he's mad at me. Yeah, that's not the case. I'm sure he's growling at the squirrel that runs across our fence or, something that he sure is about to murder us, but it was good timing on his part. I just thought I would share that. Oh, and I know I keep going back to Capone, but there was one thing that I wanted to say about Capone's page as well, is that Abigail is great, or Capone, either way, they are great about posting pictures and stories of shelter animals, dogs and cats. So often, people are more likely, I think, to adopt shelter animals if there is kind of a story behind them. So, Capone writes about each animal and tells a little bit about them and why they would make a good pet and for whom, what type of family they would be good in, and what their backstory is. So I just find that very sweet, and then if there is an adoption, then Capone posts an update on the adoption and always celebrates with his friends that they have been adopted and found their forever home. So I find that another very sweet part of Capone's page. Speaking of sweet, I'm just scrolling through the Benny Boo pictures, and he's just so cute. I mean, he's white and fluffy and floofy, and I don't know. I just want to smooch his little black button nose. I've never actually met Benny, so I probably shouldn't just show up at their house and smooch his little black button nose, but he's adorable, and I want to do that. Yeah, so Benny Boo and Capone the Wonder Dog. Let's go ahead and take our second break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be switching. Instead of dogs, we'll switch to a cat, and instead of Facebook, we'll switch to Instagram. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Pets podcast. We are speaking about pets on postal social media today. And my next story is, as I said, about a cat. And this cat's name is Nala and her human, Dean. I first saw this story on the Dodo, which pops up on my Facebook often, and because I click on pet stories a lot, and so then they keep popping up on my Facebook because of the algorithms. And this one caught my attention, so I clicked on it. And Dean is biking around the world, which is interesting enough, and wow, fascinating enough. But then he encountered this cat, and then his story pretty much went viral. I mean, when I Googled it for this podcast, there are a ton of articles written about Dean and Nala. There are YouTube videos, and as I mentioned, they do have an Instagram page, One Bike, One World, which I would imagine is the name that started when he was just biking around the world, but then Nala came into the picture. So this is, here's some excerpts from an article from the Washington Post, April 4th, 2019. So this has been around for a while, but after I saw the video on the Dodo and read a little bit more, then I went on Instagram and followed One Bike, One World, so I can get Nala updates, because it's a world traveling cat on a bike. Well, seriously, how fun is that? Okay, so Dean Nicholson was pedaling up a hill in Bosnia near the border of Montenegro when he heard a plaintive meow. He looked over his shoulder and saw a gray and white kitten chasing him up the incline. So Dean is 31, at least at this point. So I guess he's probably 32 at this now, maybe, depending on when his birthday is. He is Scottish. He had set out 3 months earlier from his home in Dunbar, which is a town on the eastern coast of Scotland, to traverse the world on his green Trek 920 bike. He cycled from Scotland to England, hopped on a ferry to the Netherlands. So he really, he doesn't cycle across water, just in case you were wondering. And then traveled through Belgium, France, Switzerland, and down to Italy. From the coast of the Adriatic, he caught a ferry to Croatia and then made his way into Bosnia. He was seeking distance from his job as a welder, which had left him, according to this article, listless and depleted. He told the Washington Post, "I couldn't do the 9-to-5 thing. I wanted to see the world and what state it's in." I so wish I could do a Scottish accent, because Dean is Scottish and he does have a Scottish accent, but I cannot, alas. So he decided to this meant, choosing a bike and the open air over a bus or train compartment. And he said, otherwise you miss out on the smaller towns, he explained. And it meant going alone, or so he thought. So the Balkans had a surprise in store for him in the form of a feline and fellow traveler. He called her Nala, after, of course, the lioness in his favorite film, The Lion King. And once Nala found him, she would not leave his side. So he began a second, not so solo leg of his round the world ride. I think in one of the articles I read, he was going to just try to find someplace where he could leave her, someplace safe, where she could be dropped off and maybe find a different home. But Nala was having none of it. She decided that Dean was her human. So their journey became a sensation then on social media. A video was posted by the dodo, as I said, and had been viewed nearly 8 million times in that first week, and that was almost a year ago. So Nicholson said, if you've got a pet, you know what it's like. You're never alone. It's true companionship. And so if you follow him on social media, if you follow him on Instagram, this cat he's got a little basket and she rides in the basket when he's pedaling his bike. He rides in the rain. Obviously, he can't just stop when there's inclement weather. Obviously, I keep saying obviously, sorry. I would imagine that he stops when it's really, really bad, but if it's just raining. So Nala had a little cover on it and you can see her peeking out of the basket, and she's, I don't know, it's just the sweetest little relationship. She goes everywhere with him. Often she's sitting on his shoulder. There's one picture where they're having a little nose to nose time, and she's sitting on his shoulder, and it's very, very sweet. So it says at first Nicholson didn't know what to do with this little kitten that he found on the side of the road. He was already carrying too much cargo. On the other end, he had grown up with dogs and considered himself loyal to dogs. But no, Nala again had other plans. She's, Dean, I don't care if you like dogs. I am going to hang out with you. You are my human. As soon as I got her to relax, that's when I decided to bring her with me, he said. He plopped her in his front basket, clearing out some digital equipment to make room for Nala. And then that's what I said. You can see those pictures of her looking adorable, riding in the basket on the bike. She wasn't satisfied with that perch and climbed up onto Nicholson's shoulder. From there, she kept watch and nuzzled him. Quickly becoming accustomed to the bumps and swerves of the road, she dozed off. Nicholson found a vet in Montenegro where he learned that she was about 7 weeks old and had no microchip. And so I was like, I'll just keep her. He had a chip installed and made sure Nala got the vaccinations that would allow her to accompany him across borders. Oh, she's just so cute. He found a proper cat compartment, which even boasted a small window allowing Nala to peer outside, and purchased a harness to make sure she stayed by his side, although really I don't think she's leaving. With that, the pair returned to the open road, making their way to Budva, which is an ancient Montenegrin city. And Nala stole the attention of every passing tourist and even managed to get me a free pint, he wrote of his visit in December on his Instagram page, which quickly drew loyal followers. Yeah, this cat is adorable. She's just so sweet looking, and she's a world-traveling cat. I love that. The two were inseparable as Nala clung to Nicholson's back when he was cycling or burrowed in his armpit when he stopped to pitch his tent at night. They shared meals at their deserted campsite as he devoured pasta and fries and she ate cat food. He sipped coffee, she lapped water. Yep, and there she is with her little head sticking out of the front of her carrier on his bike. Oh, anyway, so Nicholson, wasn't used to getting this much attention. Passerbys, of course, noticed Nala's little cute head sticking out of the basket, but he understood why this would fascinate people because it is an unusual sight, he said. They spent Christmas in Himara in southern Albania, where holiday treats left Nala tuckered out. And there is a Christmas picture. She's wearing a tiny little Santa hat. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's a picture of her playing on the beach. I mean, he takes great pictures of her. So at the end of the year, he briefly put their journey on hold. And because Nala got a chest infection, she was given antibiotics, and he posted up with her in a hostel for several weeks of recovery. But by early January, things were looking up as Nicholson documented his companion's second cough-free day. know. Anyway, I mean, I could just keep on going and scrolling through the pictures and the Instagram posts, but you can do that yourself. Like I said, it's One Bike, One World on Instagram, the number one bike, the number one world, rather than the word one. And you can follow Dean and Nala on their journeys. So this article, as I said, was written in 2019, in April of 2019, but they are still on their adventures, which I think are fun to follow. Maybe you might as well. I mean, obviously I'm not, see, again with the obviously, I don't know. I gotta stop that. I'm not getting anything from talking about any of these pets on social media. I just find them fun to follow and thought that I would share them with you. So looking at One Bike, One World on Instagram, they've got, Dean and Nala have got 751,000 followers. Their most recent post is from yesterday, which got over 70,000 likes. It says, "Happy Friday, everyone." And, charity receiving donation today is at Mini Cat Town over in California. So that's lovely that they are using their 751,000 followers to encourage people to do some good in the world. And in this picture from yesterday, Nala is sitting in her cat carrier on the bike, and she is wearing she's wearing a lion's mane on her head. It's got little brown stuffed ears that look like Nala's from The Lion King. The hashtags are beautiful, meow, roar, fierce, lioness, stay safe, social distancing. So reminding us, that there are things in the world that we need to be aware of and be safe. So Nala is helping to spread awareness about social distancing as well. Although she's so very cute, I would just want to smooch on her head. But that's okay, because as long as I'm social distancing from the humans, I think I'm allowed to kiss the kitties, right? No, I can't. I'm allergic. It would not be good. Anyway, that is probably enough out of me and this whole blah, blah, blahing about animals on social media. Thank you so much for joining me. Tune in tomorrow for Samantha's next episode of the podcast. We'll see what she has to talk about this time. On her last episode, she talked about she asked the question of whether or not she should get a raccoon as a pet. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. Hope you're having a great weekend. Hope you're staying safe, staying healthy, social distancing, not hoarding toilet paper, and loving on your pets. Talk to you next time. You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.